Good afternoon, everyone. So today I am going to discuss about the advanced wastewater treatment. And in yesterday's lecture, we discussed about, or I have given some little information about the application of nanoparticles in wastewater treatment. Now, as we all know that the industrial wastewater or the municipal wastewater, which is known as a sewage, is having a variety of pollutants, and it is having with varying concentration and varying properties. So whatever the single technology available or whatever the conventional technologies are available, it cannot treat all the municipal water or sewage or the industrial wastewater, right? So based upon the characteristics of the pollutant, concentration of the pollutant, type of the pollutant, and the treated water quality requirement, we have to select the various technology. So whatever the conventional technologies are there, apart from that, nowadays the advanced wastewater technologies are utilized. So now why this requirement of the advanced wastewater treatment is required? Because as you know, whatever the conventional methods are available for the treatment of the pollutant, whether it is industrial or the municipal pollutants are there, etc., right? You all are aware that is a primary treatment, secondary treatment, etc., right? So after giving all the treatment, also the wastewater whatever is generated after the treatment is not up to the mark, or you cannot still dispose it into the water body or on the land, etc., due to the varying type of a pollution, pollutants, concentration, etc. So basically in all those industrial wastewater and municipal sewage, after the treatment also some percentage of the suspended solids, BOD, nutrients, dissolved solids, and various toxic substances are remaining. So that is why the advanced wastewater technology is coming into the picture. Now, there are various types of technologies which are used in wastewater treatment. That includes the combination of physical, physicochemical, and a variety of biological processes. So, as we all know that the physical processes are there, then it utilizes the physical forces for the separation of the pollutant from the wastewater, which includes the sedimentation, evaporation, filtration, gas transfer, etc. Right? I'm not going to go in these detail because we are going to discuss the advanced treatment methods. Okay. So, and the various physicochemical processes are also there. That is the coagulation and flocculation, then electrocoagulation process, then adsorption, right? Ion exchange process, precipitation, the use of the membranes, then advanced oxidation processes, and various electrochemical processes, right? So in which the physical and chemical, both the phenomena and the concept of all these physical and chemical property of all the material and whatever we have, that has been that is utilized. Okay. So that is about the physicochemical, and the biological methods are there. That is the aerobic methods and anaerobic methods are available, right? So all these methods are there, but still nowadays the advanced method, depending upon the characteristics of the pollutant, various methods we are utilizing. So the first one I want to discuss is adsorption. Now you all are aware that is what is adsorption, right? Whenever we speak the word adsorption, then you might think that okay, that is activated carbon, right? So that first thing is coming in our mind. So basically the adsorption of, let's say, the dyes are there. So it mainly depend on two mechanisms, that is the adsorption and the ion exchange, and it is widely influenced by the concentration of the particle, then the adsorbent surface, temperature, pH, contact time, etc. So earlier the activated carbon was utilized. Nowadays, instead of the carbon activated carbon, various new materials are utilized. So recently, if you see this, just a minute. Okay. Recently, if you see this, is a paper that is of new research, that is synthesis and RSM and CCD optimization of microwave induced green interpreting network hydrogel adsorbent based on gum copal for selective removal of melasite green from wastewater. Don't be worried about these hi-fi words. Actually, it is a very simple thing. Now gum copal. So it you in the picture you can see it is a gum copal. Here in Gujarat we call it as a gundar, right? And you might have observed this as a gond. In Hindi we call it as a gond, like that. And that is basically a sticky material which you will find on the trunk of a tree, right? So that is known as this gum copal. So only these hi-fi words are utilized, otherwise it is very simple. So basically it is a green material, so this gum copal is utilized, and from that gum copal is treated with the help of some chemicals, and all that polymer materials are added, and finally they have prepared this particular adsorbent, right? This adsorbent they have prepared. Now this adsorbent they have utilized for these particular melasite green, right? So now this melasite green dye is a cationic dye, and whose nitrogen, here in the picture you can see, whose nitrogen interacts with the anionic moieties present on the IPN. This is the IPN adsorbent which we have prepared through the electrostatic interaction, right? Moreover, if you see the functional group of IPN also form the hydrogen bond. Here you can see this H is connected with this hydrogen bond with the nitrogen atom of the dye molecules, resulting in the removal. So basically whatever adsorbent you are preparing, right, so this particular cationic dye is adsorbed on that particular naturally prepared adsorbent. So that is the thing. Okay, then in the next study, that is the same way another green material is utilized, and they have you prepared on the hydrogel, and that hydrogel before the adsorption you can see the picture, and the hydrogel after the adsorption of the methylene blue dye, right? So these are nothing but the green material nowadays which are utilized for the adsorption purpose. Now you will think why you are calling it as a green material, right? So nowadays, see, if you talk about the regeneration and reusability, right? If you are having a more number of reusability and regeneration capacity, then that material can be considered as a green material, right? So here the same analysis, they these hydrogel they have utilized, if you see in the picture, they have utilized for 5 consecutive cycle. Like the adsorption is done, then the desorption of the material is once again done, then once again the adsorption is done. So that is known as a cycle, right? In adsorption there is a cycle of adsorption and desorption, right? So completes one particular complete cycle means adsorption, desorption. That is one particular cycle. So if you see in the figure, the removal of methylene blue, right, up to the 4 cycle, 60 percentage removal it is getting, and after that it is getting around about 50 percentage removal, even though the time for the adsorption increases as the number of cycle increases, but we don't have any problem. So due to these particular reason, they have considered the right. Okay, now in this next particular research, if you see the Yang at 2020, they have prepared some this nanofibril aerogels, right? And this is considered as a green adsorbent for the anionic and cationic dye removal, right? So if you see the picture, right? So a novel carbon dioxide responsive cellulose aerogel as a green adsorbent is derived from the cellulose material, and upon the CO2 simulation in the figure you can see this is the adsorbent, right? And on the CO2 stimulation, the charged aerogel can selectively absorb the anionic dye. So here you can see the CO2 stimulation is there, so the adsorption of the dye is there, and from the dye regeneration is taking place. So the dye, whatever the after the regeneration, whatever the dye is there, that is collected, and that regenerated this particular material they have utilized again and again. And you won't believe, this particular research says that they have utilized these particular adsorbent for 20 cycles, right? So it is a cellulose material, plus they have utilized for 20 times. So that is why it is termed as a green material or green adsorbent. Okay, so this is about the adsorption phenomena as a advanced wastewater treatment. Okay, so that is one part, right? So whatever the organic materials are there, that can be removed through the new advanced waste water treatment, that is new adsorbents such as the uh, green adsorbent. Now the next is the nitrogen removal. So if you see the conventional treatment methods, in that you won't be able to remove the nitrogen, right? So the advanced method, or these are the basic method also, which contain the air stripping and biological nitrification and denitrification method. So air stripping involves the conversion of the ammonium ions to gaseous phase and then dispersing the liquid in air, thus allowing transfer of the ammonia from wastewater to the air, right? Here you can add the lime also for the maintaining of the pH. So for this, the packed tower air strippers are utilized for the removal of the nitrogen. So here in the picture you can see the contaminated water inlet is there, which is sprinkling on the particular packing material. Then the moisture eliminator is there, so gas can be removed from the top, and you will get the clean water out, right? Okay. Then the biological nitrification and denitrification. Now basically this process is done by the bacteria, right? So nitrification, that means the biological conversion of ammonium ion to nitrogen. That is, here you can see the first step, the ammonium ions are there, so with the help of the nitrosomonas bacteria, it can be converted into the nitrite. And then hello, 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 am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You can hear.
Hello.
We can hear you, madam.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Okay. So then in the second step, whatever the nitrite is there, that is converted to nitrate with the help of this nitrobacter. Now the advanced treatment method means what? This in the yesterday's lecture, I have shown one PVA gel beads, right? So nowadays, whenever you have to go for this aeration process, basically this is the oxygen which we are supplying, right? So you have to collect these bacteria, nitrosoponas and nitrobacter, and you have to go for aeration, right? So the advanced and in the if you talk about the aeration tank, you all are aware that in that the pollutants are there, then the microorganisms are there, and the air is there, right? So nowadays the advanced method is such that in that particular aeration tank we are providing the materials, right? Some PVC material is provided, or some lightweight materials are provided, this PVA gel beads are provided, etc., right? So on whenever you provide all these kind of a material, right, on that material the microorganisms grow, right? So instead of they are remaining in the suspension condition, they stick to this particular material. Advanced method. Then denitrification occurs when oxygen levels are depleted and when nitrate becomes the primary electron acceptor source for microorganisms. That means microorganisms can eat this nitrate also, right? And then in denitrification process, where the oxygen is not available, it will convert nitrate to nitrite, and that cycle goes in a anti-clockwise direction, and the nitrogen gas is generated. Okay, so denitrification process requires the denitrifying bacteria, carbon source, and the oxygen source, right? Now you have to understand that for the survival of the bacteria, you require the carbon source which they'll eat as a food, and as well as all these pollutants are also considered as a carbon source, right? And oxygen source for the survival of that particular thing. So these are the equation of nitrification and denitrification, which I will not go in that much detail. Okay, then the next method is the advanced oxidation processes, that is AOP, which utilizes the homogeneous Fenton process, then heterogeneous Fenton process. Fenton means in that Fe will be there and H2O2 will be there. So that is known as a Fenton process. Photofenton process. So Fe will be there, H2O2 will be there, and the light will be applied. Then photocatalysis is there. Yesterday's lecture we discussed about photocatalysis, like the nanomaterials or metal oxide nanoparticles, which can have the property of absorbing the light, and due to that particular light they get enhanced, they get activated and release these particular hydroxyl radicals and the ozonation. So here also, if you see from all these processes, you have to generate these particular hydroxyl radicals, right? So these hydroxyl radicals which are generated through all these processes can oxidate the particular pollutants, or the oxidation of the pollutants are taking place. So in this advanced oxidation processes, one another method is the electrochemical process. So today I'm going to focus on these electrochemical methods, right? So in the last, if you talk about last 10 years, these are the methods which are utilized widely for the wastewater treatment. So basically, what is this electrochemical methods, right? So whenever the electrochemical word is coming in your mind, you will think that the anode is there and the cathode is there, etc. Right? So the main principle on which this electrochemical process is working, that is to charge electric current through electrodes, resulting in the different chemical reactions, right? And the various reactions are known as electrocoagulation, electrooxidation, electroreduction, etc. Right? So if you see the picture of our electrochemical cell carefully, you will see the anode and cathode. Right? So anode is connected with the positive side and the cathode is connected with the negative side. Right? So if you focus on the anode, so the water which is there, right, H2O, when it comes in contact with the anode, it will give the oxygen. Then Cl minus ion is there, it will convert it into chlorine gas. Then organics are there, it will be converted into the oxidized product. Right? Then H2O is there, it will generate the the anode will generate the OH radical, OH minus ions. Right? Then cathode, if you concentrate, the water droplets can generate H2 gas on cathode. Then Cl minus can be ClO minus can be converted to Cl minus, and the organic products are there that will be converted to the reduced product. So if you see this, and in the this electrolysis figure also, if you see the splitting water with electricity to produce hydrogen and oxygen. So H2O is there, right? When these ion is getting split, it will be split in H plus and OH minus. So OH minus will be attracted towards the positive side, right? And it will give its electron over there and it will generate oxygen. Similarly, the hydrogen H plus ion, it will be attracted to the negative side, positive negative. So H plus will be attracted to negative, that is cathode, and generate this H dot. Yesterday's lecture also we discussed H dot is termed as a nascent hydrogen, and two nascent hydrogen when combines together, it will form a hydrogen gas. Right? So H plus ion will receive this negative electron and it will convert it into the nascent hydrogen. So basically, the anode means oxidation and cathode means reduction. Near the anode, oxidation will take place, and near the cathode, reduction will take place. Okay. So there are various important terms which are used in electrochemical process, that is anode, cathode, electrolyte, that you understand. Then current density. Now this is very important. Whatever current applied per unit area of the electrode, that is known as the current density, right? And current efficiency. So if the oxidation processes are there, then the material of anode is important. If the reduction processes are there, then the cathode material is important. Now in in electrochemical process, energy consumption is very important. Whenever you do the particular electrochemical process, you have to calculate the energy consumption during your particular process. So formulas are available, that is U into I into T by 1000 volt. U is the average cell voltage, then I is the applied current during the electrolysis, T is the time, and V is the dye solution volume or any pollutant solution volume. Right? Then you can calculate the current efficiency, like whatever instantaneous current efficiency is there, that you have to calculate. So for that also the formula is available, that N into delta C into Vs into 100 by I into delta V by F. So N is the number of electrons involved in the chemical reaction, F is the Faraday's constant, delta C is the change in concentration of a dye or a pollutant between two time points, then Vs is the volume of solution, then I is the current, delta T is the different time difference between 2 points, and ICE value can be calculated. So this ICE value is very important, that is current efficiency in any particular process. Okay, so now we will discuss this electrochemical oxidation. In this electrochemical oxidation, so basically you have to understand that the electrochemical cell is there. So there are two types of cells are there, divided cell and undivided cell, right? So whenever this electrochemical oxidation is there, you can utilize the undivided cell. Undivided means in one particular cell itself you can keep your anode and cathode together and you can connect with your battery, right? So electrochemical oxidation, which is well known as EO, right? So there are two types of EO, direct oxidation and indirect oxidation, right? Now direct oxidation means pollutants are directly oxidized on the anodes. As in this picture you can see, here you can see organics are oxidized directly on the anode, right? Now then indirect oxidation. Now indirect oxidation means pollutants are degraded with the help of the generated strong oxidants, right? Now you all know that in a electrochemical cell, anode, cathode and electrolyte, so which electrolyte you are utilizing, that that will help you for the generation of the oxidant. Can I have the some answer from the faculty members, that generally which electrolyte we are utilizing? Can anyone tell me which electrolyte can be utilized generally? Hello? Anyone is having any idea?
Can anyone tell the answer
Okay.
to question?
I'll
I think it seems. I mean, ma'am, you continue, ma'am.
okay,
Probably.
it's perfectly yeah, perfectly fine. Yeah. Yes. So the indirect oxidation means whatever electrolyte we are utilizing, right? So based on that electrolytes, the strong oxidants are generated. So in an indirect electrochemical oxidation process, strong oxidants like ozone, chlorine, hypochlorite and hydroxyl free radicals are generated electrochemically. So the answer is basically NaCl. Sodium chloride is widely utilized as the electrolyte in any electrochemical process. After that, the sodium sulfate Na2SO4 is utilized, and after that, the sodium carbonate, which is very rarely it is utilized. Okay, so in yes, direct oxidation is there, that is through the OH radicals which are generated on the anode, which will degrade the particular pollutant, right? And in indirect oxidation you can see these kind of reactions are taking place into the reactor, and which will degrade the particular pollutant, that is Cl minus is there, so it will prepare it will give you the chlorine gas, which is which is reacted with the water, which will generate the hypochlorite HOCl. Then HOCl will once again H plus and generate the H plus and OCl minus ions, like this. And here also in these particular reaction you will find that the hydroxyl radicals and H2O2 and the oxygen, ozone is also a oxidant, right? So these are generated. Okay, so here in this picture, you can see this anode and cathode is there, right? So on anode, the direct oxidation is there, which is generate the OH radical, and the pollutants are directly oxidized through the anode. And indirect oxidation means in the solution, whatever the chemicals present as the NaCl electrolyte, it will generate the OH minus ion. Then the Cl minus ion is there, that is the dissociation of NaCl will take place. It will generate Na plus and Cl minus ion. So from the Cl minus, it will give you Cl2, and chlorine gas will be generated, which will generate HOCl also. And these compounds also can act as the thing oxidant, and it will degrade the particular pollutant. Okay, so in the one of the study, that is the statistical optimization of indirect electrochemical oxidation process for the treatment of dye from simulated textile discharge. So here in the picture you can see the simplest diagram is there, that is the graphite electrodes are utilized as the anode and cathode. Then magnetic stirrer is there, DC power supply is provided, etc. And this is basically utilized for the simulated textile wastewater. Okay, so this is the result of this particular research, in which if you see the UV visible spectra of the dye, some name is there, that is RR120, during the indirect electrochemical oxidation process at different time intervals, right? So indirect means they have added the electrolyte is always there. So that electrolyte NaCl, you can see in the data also it is written, that is 2 gram per liter they have added. Dye component is there and the voltage and time is written, right? So as the reaction proceeds, you can see the spectra, it is reducing, right? And at a 40 minute, if you see, the absorbance is zero, right? Nearly about zero. So this means that whatever the dye is there, that is degraded, it has been now colorless, and it is fully mineralized into the carbon dioxide, and it is dissolved into the water. So in the what I want to tell you is, whenever the oxidation process is there, the spectra reduces as it is. That is the important thing I want to share with you. Okay, now one another example or another research, that is QU et al 2018, they have discussed on this simultaneous electrooxidation and in situ electroperoxine process for the degradation of refractory organics in wastewater. Now here they have utilized anode, that is TiSNO2 SbO2O5. So that is Ti and SN combination anode they have prepared, and cathode they have utilized as a carbon based gas diffusion electrode they have utilized. Now in the picture itself you can see the carbon gas diffusion electrode. That means from the cathode they have supplied the air, right, which contain oxygen, right? So now on the cathode, you know, H plus, always cathode is connected with the negative point, so H plus is attracted towards the cathode and oxygen is available, so it will generate H2O2. So that is why that is a peroxine, so hydrogen peroxide, right? So H2O2 is generated, and that H2O2 once again during the reaction it will generate the hydroxyl, that is OH dot radical. Near the anode, whatever the ozone gas will be formed, that can be converted to a liquid form, and that ozone gas also generate the hydroxyl radical. So organic material, you can see direct reduction from the anode is also shown. Here you can see the direct reduction of the organic material is shown, which is converted into CO2 plus H2O, and as well as whatever the hydroxyl radicals are generated in the reactor, that also degrade these particular material. Okay, so in one another research, that is electrochemical degradation of Remazole red Br, that is one type of a dye, and Novachrome blue CD dye using diamond electrode. Right now, here in the picture, you can see that the removal in 60 minutes, the entire removal is there, right? In both the case, almost. And if you see the spectra of the dye, this is the dye spectra. Yesterday also we discussed, that is the maximum absorbance of the every dye is having its own maximum absorbance. And here you can see the spectra reduces as it is, right, during this oxidation process. Okay, now now I will show you the research work which I have done related to this particular electrochemical oxidation. So, and this paper we have published in Electrochemical Acta, that is the Elsewhere journal, electrochemical decolorization of reactive black dye in an undivided cell using TI and graphite anodes, and the effect of polypyrrole coating on the anodes. See, all these are the new wastewater treatment technology, right? Earlier only graphite, only TI was utilized. Now we have tried the polypyrrole coating on the particular anodes. Okay, so reactive black 5, this is the general information about the reactive black 5 dye. You can see the chemical structure of the dye. Yesterday also we discussed, it is a azo dye, which is having a N double bond N. This is the UV visible spectra of RB5, which is having one peak at 595 nanometer maximum, which will give color, blue color to the dye, and the another peak at 312 nanometer. Now, yes, normal TI plate and graphite plate we have taken, and we have done the coating of the polypyrrole. Now you will think, what is this polypyrrole? So polypyrrole is basically a material which can help in improving the surface area of that particular electrode. So the TI plate is there, on that you are making a coating, right? So the fine coating will be there, right? You are applying a fine material, so the surface area of that material will increase. Okay, so TI plate is we have taken, so the cleaning of the TI plate you have to do, and this is the method of cleaning of TI plate. Then in the second method, you have to form a PPY SLS film on the TI plate, which we have done with the electrochemical process itself. So we have prepared a mixed solution of H2SO4, and we have utilized distilled pyrrole and 1 gram of SLS, that is sodium lauryl sulfate, which is known as a surfactant. Now the solution was deoxygenated by argon for 5 minutes prior to electropolymerization. Now take the clean TI plate as anode and graphite rod as cathode, and keep it in the solution and apply the current for 5 to 10 minutes, right? So whatever polypyrrole will be there, that will be attracted toward the TI plate, and it will deposited on that particular TI plate. So in this particular picture, if you see, the TI plate is there, clean TI plate is there, and the PPY coated TI plate we have generated. Now these plate we have utilized for electrochemical oxidation process. So if you see this, this is the time course profile and first order kinetic profile of RB5 decolorization using TI and PPY SLS TI plate or anode, right? We should not use this word plate. It is either anode or the electrode. So if you see the result, the formation of PPY SLS TI plate or the formation of polypyrrole coating on TI plate does not help that much in the decolorization. Similarly, we have prepared PPY SLS graphite plate also. And if you see in the picture, the graphite, if we are using only graphite, then the removal is about 90 percentage, more than 90 percentage in 90 minutes. But when we have coated that plate with the PPY, right, so it doesn't help that much, and only we can say more less than 40 percentage result we have obtained, right? Okay, so this is the comparison, like TI, PPY TI, graphite, and PPY graphite. If you see out of all these, you are getting we are getting a maximum removal using only the graphite plate, right? And the coating of polypyrrole does not help in improving the decolorization process, right? So we have to understand this, that there is no point in the formation of these particular uh, polypyrrole coating. Now here we have also utilized this thing, undivided cell, right? That is anode cathode. In one particular chamber itself the anode cathode is provided, right? Now the important thing is this, the important observation is this, that is, this is the UV visible spectra of RB5 decolorization using graphite anode and the PPY SLS graphite anode. So if you are having a close observation on these two spectra, so what is your observation? That is, whatever the maximum peaks are there in figure A, it is reducing as it is, and no formation of any new peak is there. So 595 and 312 nanometer, it is reducing as it is. If you have a close observation at the figure B, right, so you will see that 595 nanometer peak is reduced and a new peak is generated at 254 nanometer, right? So now this is the important observation we have made. So in the if you check the earlier processes, and in that we have discussed that if any oxidation process is there, so there will be sorry, yes, there will be the thing will be the spectra reduces as it is, and there is no formation of anything, right? And if you see our observation, that is, the peak reduces and a new peak is generated in case of a polypyrrole, right? So where if you want to go for a reduction process, at that time you can utilize polypyrrole material. So this is the important observation we have made. Okay, so the polypyrrole coating does not help in the electrochemical process, but it has opened up a new thing, that if you want to go for the reduction process, right, in a undivided cell, then you can use this polypyrrole coated anodes, right? So this may be possible that due to this polypyrrole, right, that does not favor the oxidation process, but it favors the reduction process. And one of the observation we have made during this is that whatever polypyrrole coating we have prepared, but after 30 minutes or so, that because this is the oxidation process. So when you use anode, right, the material is the utilized, right, from the anode. So this polypyrrole coating was leached off, and it was found in suspension in that particular chamber. So our experience was that polypyrrole coated anodes cannot be utilized for longer period of time, and if you want to go for reduction in an undivided cell, then only you can utilize. So this is basically about our research. Then the next is the electrocoagulation process. That is, the electric current flows between the two electrodes, and the coagulant is generated in situ by electrolytic oxidation of the anode material. Here basically the aluminum anode or the Fe anodes are utilized. So basically we all know that whatever metal anodes are there, it will generate the hydrated cations, and which hydrated cations will be precipitated, right? So if you see the pollutant, right, and at the cathode, as we know, hydrogen gas is generated. So the pollutants are absorbed, or hydrogen gas is taken by the pollutant, and the pollutant will rise onto the surface. If the pollutants are entrapped in the hydrated cations, then those pollutants will increase in mass, and then that will precipitate. So basically the various reactions are taking place. So if the Fe anode is there, right, it will make the FeOH twice, right, ferrous hydroxide, which is a precipitate into at the bottom of the tank, and all the pollutants are absorbed, or with the electrostatic precipitation it will entrapped in FeOH twice. So precipitation, yes, the mechanism will be either the precipitation or the adsorption. Okay, so if the aluminium anode is there, so aluminium anode will generate Al plus 3, and these hydroxyl ions which are generated at the hydroxyl ions which are generated, it will combine with the aluminium and form the aluminium hydroxide, which will precipitate. We all know that the ferrous hydroxide or ferric hydroxide or aluminium hydroxide, all these are precipitate, and the pollutants are there, right? So pollutants, so whatever pollutants are there, so hydrogen gas is absorbed on that pollutant, and it will come on the surface, so increase contaminants on the surface. And if these pollutants are entrapped in this ALOH thrice, then it will precipitate. So basically, electrocoagulation technologies are also utilized in various forms, right? And the aim is to prepare the ferric hydroxyl precipitate, FeOH thrice or FeOH twice, like that. So if you see the picture, you can see the photo electrocoagulation, that is UV light is there, through which you can generate along with the electrochemical process, you can apply the UV light, so it will generate more amount of this ferric hydroxide. Then active chlorine, you can add chlorine, and you can generate. Then normal electrocoagulation process is there. Then the sono electrocoagulation, that means you can give the ultrasound irradiation. Then peroxycoagulation, that means here you can generate H2O2. Fe is always there, so Fe plus H2O2, that is a photofenton Fenton process will take place along with the coagulation, so that is why it is known as a peroxy. Peroxy word is utilized because H2O2 is generated. Then these electrocoagulation technologies are also associated with the electroanalysis or with the membranes. Okay, so in one of the research, they have utilized the aluminum electrode and iron electrode also, and they have found that the iron electrode performs better than the aluminum electrodes, because the if we also know in coagulation we are learning simple coagulation process that Fe is far better than aluminum because it generates this particular ferric hydroxide gelatinous material in which whatever pollutants are there that is absorbed easily, and it can be removed easily also. Okay, then the next is the electrochemical reduction process. Now, you all know that is the what I have taken over here the example of a dye. That is the dye reduction takes place producing the hydrogen, and in total reduction it generates the amino compounds, right? So, or whatever the amines are there, that is generated, right? If the chlorinated compounds are there, so it finally generates the phenolic compounds, right, during this electrochemical reduction process. So reduction is basically means whatever the pollutants are there, they'll get the hydrogen gas for the removal purpose. So whatever pollutants are there, they are known as a electron withdrawing groups, and hydrogen they are getting as a electron. So if they are getting the electron, they are easily removed from the system, or it can be converted into a component which can be easily degradable. Okay, so there are various research which has been carried out on this electrochemical reduction, and in this, in reduction process, cathode is very important, and you have to remember that electrochemical reduction is taking place in a divided cell, right? You cannot use the undivided cell and you can go for the reduction process. You have to separate anode and cathode with the help of the membrane. Okay, so various cathodes are utilized. So in the research, if you see the pollutants which can be removed with the help of this cathode, that is PDTI cathode is prepared. Then chloroform in PDPPY foam nickel or PD foam nickel is utilized, and then 2,4 dichlorophenol is there. So PDPPY SLSTI is prepared like that. So you can see in this that various types of cathodes are utilized, but in this the common thing is PD. Now why PD is utilized? Why palladium is utilized? In a cathode, what is generated in the cathode compartment? Which gas is generated? Okay, in why this PD is utilized? So that is a very important part. In cathode, hydrogen gas is generated, and in anode compartment, oxygen is generated, right? So in cathode compartment there is a collection of the hydrogen gas. So if you utilize PD is the material which is having a very good high percentage of hydrogen absorption capacity. So it will form PDH2, palladium hydride, and that palladium hydride can 100% remove all types of organic pollutant, right? Whatever complex form of organic pollutants are there, that can be easily converted into a simple form. So if you see these 2,4 DCP, so 100% removal, and you can generate 2 chlorophenol, 4 chlorophenol, and the phenol is the last step of this particular dechlorination process, right? And here in these studies they have shown also that these particular cathode, whatever type of PD coated cathode they are providing, they can widely utilize these particular cathode, or you can see 8 to 10 times they can utilize. Okay, so here is some more research and in which if you concentrate on the cathode, so PD coated cathodes are provided. And you can see for the, see, all these materials are, if you see, if you talk about PCP, pentachlorophenol, 2,4-dichlorophenoxyacetic acid, that is 2,4-D, 2-chlorophenol, etc. These are all the very dangerous pollutant, right? It cannot be removed very easily. And you know why this, for removal of this, basically the electrochemical reduction method only it is utilized, because in electrochemical reduction, you know that when you are getting hydrogen or as a electrode, right, from where, which part it will break, that you know, right? Or reduction is means what is going to be formed, that you know. As for example, 2-chlorophenol is there, right? So if the reduction process is going on, is going to happen, you know that phenol is going to generate, right? But if 2-chlorophenol is there, and if you go for oxidation process, you don't know that which particular species will be generated after the oxidation of 2-chlorophenol. That is the important thing, because in oxidation and reduction, the main difference is there. In oxidation, you don't know what is going to happen, and in reduction, you know that okay, if you multiply x and y, then xy will be there, right? So that is the beauty of the reduction process, and that is why nowadays, as the new technology, you have to go for the reduction process. So in 2-chlorophenol, there is a benzene ring is there, right? And the chlorine is attached to that particular benzene ring. So during the oxidation process, which part of the benzene ring will be damaged or will break, that you don't know. But if you are going for reduction process, you know that that chlorine will be removed, and you will get the particular phenolic ring only, which is known as a phenol. Okay, so for the removal of the dyes also, the electrochemical reduction processes are utilized. Okay, so this I am just showing you one study, that is C et al 2020, means latest study is there, that is manipulating the crystalline morphology and facet orientation of copper and copper palladium nanocatalysts supported on stainless steel mesh with the aid of cationic surfactant to improve the electrochemical reduction of nitrate and N2 selectivity. So here in the picture itself, you can see the cathode is prepared, which is having a stainless steel. Then above the stainless steel, copper is deposited. And in the third picture, if you see, the palladium is also deposited. So in the first picture, only if the stainless steel and copper 200 is there, right? So nitrate is converted into ammonium ion, and that percentage is less than 10 percentage, Xn2. Then in the second case, when the stainless steel is there and Cu111 is there, so in that also the ammonia nitrate ion is converted to NO2 minus NH4 and N2. That conversion is there, and only 20 percentage. Now the third picture, if you concentrate, the stainless steel is there, copper is there, and PD is there, right? So the nitrate conversion, you can see that it is more than 65 percentage, right? Because the direct conversion from Cu is also there, and PD is there. So because in cathode, on cathode, hydrogen gas is generated, and that hydrogen gas can intercalate in the lattice of the palladium, and which will form palladium hydride, and which also generate which also degrade the pollutant, right? So various kinds of these particular cathodes can be utilized. Okay, in this another one research, if you see this electrocatalytic hydrodeclination of You can see the name 2,4,5 trichlorobiphenyl on a palladium modified nickel foam cathode. Because see, if this pollutant 2,4,5 trichlorobiphenyl, right? If you go for adsorption process, coagulation process, nothing is going to happen, right? So that is why you have to utilize these particular methods, because some organic pollutants are having such a kind of characteristics that they cannot be removed easily, and they cannot be dechlorinate, hydrodechlorinate easily, right? Hydrodechlorination means, you know what, whatever the Cl is attached with that particular, that will be removed with the H, and that Cl ion will be released into the atmosphere, right? So if these particular palladium modified nickel foam, so that the nickel foam is there on which the palladium is deposited, and you all know now that the H plus ion is there, that will be intercalate in the palladium, and it will degrade this particular palladium, right? Now I will discuss about my work, that what we have done, and which various types of cathodes we have prepared, and we have utilized, right? For the degradation process. So here ER, that is electrochemical reduction of RB5 using various cathodes in a divided cell, right? So basically, we have prepared this AgPpy SLS TI cathode. That is, TI plate is there on which we have immobilized polypyrrole, and above that we have immobilized silver. Okay, so this is the divided cell which I have utilized, and anode and cathodes are there, and we have anode we have taken permanently, we have utilized graphite, and various cathodes we have prepared, and the anode and cathode is separated with the help of the cation exchange membrane, right? So that only the cation can travel through that particular membrane to avoid the formation of the gases. This chlorine gas, these membranes are utilized. Okay, so first of all, we have prepared this AgPpy SLS electrode with various method, that is electrode deposition with the graphite anode we have prepared. Then we have utilized Ag anode. Then we have incorporated AgNPs, and we have prepared this particular electrode. And okay, so the thing is, by various method, we have prepared this AgPpy SLS TI plate. So the picture you can see, PPY plate already you have seen. So the AgPpy SLS electrode we have prepared like this. And yes, this is the result, that with the various methods, right, we have prepared only one electrode, but with the various methods, this is the particular result we are getting. So like the highest percentage of removal we are getting with the help of this AgNPs, which means AgNPs we have added in the chamber, and electrolysis was done, so that Ag was deposited on the particular cathode. But if you see the picture, we were not satisfied too much, because the what we can say, the formation of Ag on the particular electrode was patchy, and not a regular, what we can say, uh, the uniform, yes, the uniform deposition was not possible. So that is why then we have gone for some another method. So the decolorization, okay, so this is the direct electrochemical reduction. So wherever the cathode material is there, right, so directly the pollutant will get the electron from the cathode itself, and it will be reduced. Then we have utilized various cathodes, such as AgPpy SLS TI plate, then the Ag, Then graphite cathode we have utilized, cathode we have utilized, and the PPY SLS cathode we have utilized. So here is the result, that is the time course profile and the first order kinetic reaction of RB5 decolorization using various cathode material, right? So graphite you can easily get it, Ag silver, then titanium you will easily get it, and these two cathodes we have prepared, we have fabricated these two particular cathodes. So if you see the result, so our observation was that the PPY SLS TI, right, that is giving us the highest result of 82.62 percentage, and it is having the highest first order kinetic reaction rate constant, that is 0.058. So from this study we have observed that PPY SLS TI plate, whatever we have prepared, that can be very nicely, it can be utilized as a cathode material. If you remember our previous discussion, that in PPY SLS TI plate, the same plate, if we are utilizing in oxidation process, so after 30 minutes the PPY is removed from that TI plate and it is coming into the solution. But if it is utilized as a cathode material, our observation was there is no leaching of the PPY from the TI plate. So we have published a paper on this also, and this is the SEM image of the PPY SLS TI electrode, and which you can see the very honeycombing structure is there, and very fine structure is provided. Okay, so basically this is the electrochemical process, right? Now the another advanced electrochemical advanced wastewater treatment carries the sequential process, that is already earlier we discussed, that is the combination of the two processes, right? So in this sequence the processes are done. So if you see this particular, that is this example just I am taking, that sequential anaerobic aerobic process, okay, for let's say dye degradation, right? Here I have taken the example of the azo dye because it is very easy to make you understand. So anaerobic aerobic process, so why it is important? See, the first stage involves reductive cleavage of the azo linkages under anaerobic condition, resulting in aromatic amine formation, which are generally colorless but little bit hazardous, right? So in the picture itself you can see the anaerobic means the absence of oxygen, right? There is no oxygen. So during that process the hydrolysis will take place, so hydrogen is there, hydrogen gas will be there, right, in anaerobic process. So it will cleave, it will break these particular n double bond and these two amines are generated, right? Now in the next stage what you have to do, the second stage involves the degradation of the aromatic amines under aerobic condition, right? And since these compounds are usually recalcitrant under the anaerobic condition, because see, these whatever the amines are generated, right, after that oxygen, here in the picture itself you can see the oxidation or aerobic degradation is taking place, so oxygen is supplied, so it is once again converted into carbon dioxide, H2O and NH3, that is the pure mineralization of the dye is taking place, or sometimes it is auto oxidation is also taking place. That means sometimes what will happen during the anaerobic process, like when these two bond when these bond is broken and double bond, and the whatever dye is having its own color, that will be removed, right? And that is why the decolorization of the dye will take place. And when you supply the oxygen, sometimes it may happen that it will regain its color little bit, right? Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. Okay. So in our study, what we did is the biodegradation of the vinyl sulfone by mixed microbial consortium. So what we have done is this. Yes, the sequential process for RB5 degradation, right? Now, what we have done, that is in our study, what we have done is we have utilized electrochemical process, right? Electrochemical reduction of the reactive black 5 dye, right? In the presence of spatially suspended silver nanoparticles, right? So that we have done. So that is one process, followed by the aerobic process. Now what we have done is the electrochemical process we have done, right, with the help of the silver nanoparticles. Means we have added silver nanoparticles in the cathode chamber, and we have done the electrochemical reduction process, right? Then after that, after we have done that process for, let's say, 180 minute, after that we have separated the silver nanoparticles, right? And during this process also, as we have discussed earlier, the decolorization of the RB5 will take place, right? So we have collected that decolorized RB5 solution, and then we have gone for the activated sludge process, that we have uh, taken the mixed microbial culture, and that whatever the treated effluent is there from the electrochemical reduction process, that we have kept for 3 days in aeration condition, and microorganisms we have added, and and we have then after 3 days we have analyzed that what has happened, right? And samples were withdrawn daily, centrifuge, and studied for the removal of the amines. So these are our result of this particular study. That is, if you see this is the sequential ECR and biological treatment of reactive black 5. So if you see this particular picture, right, in A and B figure is there, right? So UV visible spectra A, and absorbance at 254 nanometer of electrochemical reduction of RB5 followed by the aerobic process. Okay, okay. So first let's discuss this figure A. So if you see, the RB5 is there, 00 minute, that is before the particular electrochemical reduction process. Then after 180 minute, right? So if you see, after 180 minute of, here you can see, after 180 minute of electrochemical reduction, so what will happen, this particular peak is reduced and a new peak is generated at 254 nanometer, as we have discussed earlier also, that is in RB5, 595 peak and 312 peak reduces, and a new peak is generated after the electrochemical reduction process. Now, okay, now in sequential process, what we have done, after the electrochemical process, we have gone for the biological process, right? So in the biological process, if you see this particular figure itself, that after aerobic degradation for 3 days, right? So whatever this peak is generated, okay, so after 3 days, with the help of the bacteria, you can reduce this particular peak. So the bacteria will degrade whatever is generated at the peak of 254 nanometer. It is well known that when the degradation of the reactive black 5 is done on the reduction process is there, then the vinyl sulfone is generated, which is known as a VS. Yesterday also we discussed that from the RB5 reactive black 5 dye, VS is generated. So these particular VS can be degraded by the mixed microbial culture. So what we have done, so that mixed microbial culture we have prepared. So whatever the treated effluent is there, right? So in that we have added all these materials, right? And we have added the activated sludge, which we have obtained from the aeration tank of an activated sludge plant treating the dye manufacturing wastewater. And that activated sludge was washed using the mineral medium, and that activated sludge was utilized for the degradation of vinyl sulfone. Now you have to remember, or you have to understand that this from the RB5, after the reduction, vinyl sulfone is generated, and after the aerobic degradation of vinyl sulfone, you can reduce the amount of vinyl sulfone. Okay, so see, and why this sequential process is important? Because directly if you dispose the dye into the water body, right, it cannot be degraded aerobically. But if you give the treatment, like if you give the electrochemical reduction process, right, reductive process, so from that the amines can be generated, and these amines can be degraded biologically easily, right? So that is why the sequential processes are important. So if you see now, if you see, or if you have a close observation at the figure B, right? So that is the absorbance at 254 nanometer. UV visible spectra is there, right? So the as this process is there, that is the electrochemical reduction process, these 254 nanometer peak is increased, right? And whenever that this is nothing but the vinyl sulfone peak, right? And after the aerobic biodegradation, that is after 180 hour, we have treated for 3 days. If you see the graph, 1 hour, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, we have taken so many sample, but we have not shown over here. So after 3 days, you can see the removal is there, right? So if we have gone for continuous, for a longer period, then definitely the removal will be higher. So the thing is, the sequential processes always help in the mineralization of the various pollu- pollutant. So so that was about the work which I have gone through. One another work I am discussing is the degradation of the azodyes by sequential Fenton's oxidation and aerobic biological treatment, right? So that is Tanta Kettle 2006. So here the picture in the given figure, you can see the reactive blue 13 dye is utilized. This is the spectra of that particular dye. Then if you see that after the AOP, that is the advanced oxidation process, the effluent, right? So Fenton's oxidation process is done. Fenton's oxidation means Fe plus H2O2. So that is the Fenton's process, that is also known as advanced oxidation process, right? And after that the peak is reduced, and after that the once again the aerobic biological treatment is given. So once again more that peak is reduced more, right? So by combination of these two processes, you will get the complete mineralization of the dye. So basically nowadays if you want to go for the groundwater treatment, so over that also, and for the chlorinated compound also, see, the sequential treatment methods are utilized. So sequential, why? If once again I'll give you one more example, like the chlorinated compound, let's say 2 chlorophenol is there, right? So how the studies are going on, that first of all the electrochemical reduction treatment is given, and then the oxidation treatment is given. Why? So for let's say 2 chlorophenol, so for 2 chlorophenol, first of all the electrochemical reduction is given. So what will happen? Phenol is generated, right? From 2 chlorophenol to phenol. during the reduction process. Now you have phenol, so the oxidation of phenol is going on, then it will generate the mineralized product, that is carbon dioxide and water, right? So the sequential methods are utilized for the degradation of the chlorinated compounds. Basically chlorinated compounds, it has been utilized, right? Then the combination of electrochemical and biological process, the combination of the sequential Fenton's oxidation process and biological process, then the sequential photocatalysis process and aerobic biological treatment process. So all the combinations can be possible. So these are the various things about the advanced wastewater treatment method. And yes, the another advanced wastewater treatment method, that is the application of the nanoparticles or nanocomposites or nanorods, etc. So that already we have discussed yesterday. The nowadays, see, whatever the conventional method is there, in that also the upgradation is taking place. If you talk about the reverse osmosis method, so various types of membrane materials are used, membrane filtration is done, nanofiltration is done, etc. So all the those are the new technology which are utilized. And yes, nowadays the main technology is utilized is nanomaterial, photocatalysis, etc. Okay, so that is all from my side. So thank you very much. If you have any doubt, so please you can ask me.
Ma'am, it was a wonderful
sir.
session. So I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Yes, from the participants.
Yes, sir.
One question was asked by one Mr. Ramesh, that in waste management composite industries, they also produce a lot of non-degradable waste. How to handle those wastes properly? Kindly explain. This is one question they was asked.
Yeah. So see, basically whenever the non-biodegradable waste is there, so in those cases the adsorption is the process in which you can utilize and you can absorb all those particular non-biodegradable material, and you can separate it from the wastewater. And nowadays the technologies are going on, that is whatever the non-biodegradable materials are there, that can be again utilized for the, and from those materials you can prepare some new material, and you can utilize in the treatment of wastewater. Because if you remember in yesterday's lecture, I have shown you one plastic bottle is there along with the spent coffee material. So combination is done, and on that particular material we have immobilized the nanoparticles, and that can be utilized as a catalyst. So in this way, the non-biodegradable materials can be utilized.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question asked by one Mr. Kotupalli Gurulingam. In water electrolysis process, how the generated hydrogen in the form of gas is handled from safety perspective? Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. See, if we talk about the wastewater treatment, right? So, and I have utilized one word, current density. So if you see the current density, that is whatever the current applied per unit area of the electrode. So in the electrochemical process, that current density is very low, right? So the amount of hydrogen gas generated is not that much, so that you cannot handle. So in very lesser or a very manageable amount of hydrogen gas is generated, and always it is combined with the whatever the what we can say, the pollutants are there. So whenever the hydrogen gas is there, so pollutants are the electron withdrawing groups, so always they will absorb the hydrogen gas which is generated during the process. So that is why it can be easily manageable.
Thank you, ma'am. One more question, ma'am. We often encounter problems with cleaning dyes, which is used for microbial staining. Several dyes include malachite green, Comase brilliant blue, which retain permanent stain on the surface of glasswares. Can you suggest how we can develop an in-house working model for dye degradation? This question was asked by Mr. Santosh Kumar. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. I think this is a very practical question, because we are also working on that particular various dyes and all that. So that staining, see, whenever we are utilizing any glassware for the particular dyes, so the one method is in immediate cleaning of that particular glassware can be done, and then the drying of the glassware in the hot air oven, and whatever the glasswares are there, that can be washed with the distilled water, and then it can be utilized. But that is what I know, but I don't know more on this staining of the dye.
I think we have almost come to the end of the session now. Thank you very much, ma'am, for giving a very practical presentation today, and a lot of techniques. And you have highlighted your research work along with so many other research works in this field, ma'am. So
Yes.
it was again a very interactive, wonderful session presented by you, madam. Thank you again, and I thank on behalf of Dr. MGR Educational Research Institute Mechanical Department for gracing us in spite of your hectic schedules, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you to all the participants who are calmly listening, because it is very tough in listening in this particular time of 2:30 to 4.
Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.